This takes me to my next point. Because of all of the research that we've done, what we realized is that people's needs don't change over time. What does change is their expectations on how we service those needs. And so to give you an example, a customer need is actually accessing my money. That specific need has existed for a very long time. And so 60 years ago, people could only access their money if they physically went into a branch and requested it from a teller. Access was limited to weekday working hours only. In the 70s, the first computerized ATM was introduced, which could identify the customer using the card's magnetic strip and a PIN number. Initially, the machines only operated from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. And then the number of ATMs exploded during the 1980s and 1990s as the banks moved to electronic banking. And by 2017, though, numbers were declining with ATMs because tap and go cards were increasingly replacing cash, even for small transactions. And over the last decade, digital wallets have grown from a niche payment option to a global phenomenon. So the fundamental need of accessing money when you need to pay for things has not changed. What has changed is our expectations, our behaviors, and how we fulfill that need. So the above example, though, illustrates how companies have focused on upgrading customer touch points. And these are the individual transactions which customers interact with the business over time to meet a specific need. And by doing that for many years, it led to an explosion of customer interaction points across new channels, devices, applications. But that created a siloed focus on individual touch points, and that missed the bigger picture. Because what happened is when we interviewed people that were not happy with our service, most of them were not too fussy about an issue with a specific touch point. So a payment not going through or experiencing a delay in receiving approval for a loan. What was making people leave was something that we were not measuring at the time. And it's basically the customer's cumulative experience across multiple channels, multiple interactions, and over time. And that was the key of actually building stronger and deeper relationships. So looking at that a little bit in more detail, we looked at a study done in 2015, and it looked at basically transformational relationship events and how some of these events contribute to incremental relationship development, as predicted by life cycle theories, whereas others kind of spark turning points where there are dramatic impacts on the relationship. And such events can basically disconfirm relational expectations, positively or negatively, or they can basically just change the trajectory of the relationship itself. So you can see in the diagram that the same positive event over time basically might be from a very positive one to something that you've gotten used to and it doesn't matter anymore, versus a negative event that has happened early on in the relationship. If you do that again over time, then people actually like that might be something that could change the relationship completely. And so that dimension of time and how it unfolds to form relationships is something new. We added it as a consideration in our work, as typical journey frameworks don't involve that. And it shouldn't be confused with traditional retention or cross-selling methods. And being part of an organization with this history, and the focus at the moment is to help Australians succeed, the only way that we can actually succeed is building stronger relationships. So it all comes down to people helping people in moments that matter. So how do we put this all together? We need to basically focus on stories. We need to focus on listening people, understanding people of different ages, different cultures, different financial and relationship situations. All of that insight made me realize how important it is to do exactly that. Understand how people make or are reluctant to make financial decisions and why it's important to them. And by doing that, we can define opportunity areas, we can craft experience principles, we can experiment with ideas. These stories build empathy and are the key source of moving to solving real problems for people. The second point is basically layering journeys to connect your everyday decisions with strategically aligned outcomes. And you can zoom in and zoom out depending on the level of detail that you're actually working on. This is where we need to include the customer outcomes and emotions, jobs to be done framework, services that we're creating, capability mapping from a tech perspective, systems and processes that are happening in the business, and any metrics that we want to put in place to actually measure those outcomes. And the last piece is factor in how you can build relationships over time. So it's really important to understand that there are life events that actually change the course of how people actually view their finances. There are moments that actually matter in people's life, and we need to be able to identify those and adapt to those. Unforeseen circumstances. So I know that we've basically talked about really great scenarios today, like positive ones, owning a home and getting married, but there are unforeseen circumstances like losing a job in a pandemic. That wasn't something that people actually were thought that would ever happen. And how do we adapt as a business to basically solve for those needs in a manner that is showing genuine care for people? And also looking at influential relationships. So in the beginning of your life, you're by yourself, you make decisions possibly by yourself, but over time you have other people in your life that you actually are joining finances together, and how you manage your money might not be the same as how other people manage their money. And those are kind of considerations that change the outlook of your financial situation.